Welcome back to The Explainer. Look, if you've been hunting for an extensive audio review of the National Electrical Code, specifically Chapter 2 and Article 210, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into an exam-ready review of the massive structural shifts inside the 2026 NEC. The industry is changing so rapidly, and the code is evolving right alongside it to accommodate emerging tech, new safety metrics, and way higher voltages. So let's get you fully prepped and up to speed. All right, let's look at our agenda for today's Explainer. We're going to start with the big 2026 NEC restructuring, move right into Chapter 2's brand new look, break down the Article 210 load calculation shifts, dive into some really cool GFCI and AFCI evolutions, and finally, wrap it all up with review checkpoints for all you installers out there. Okay, Part 1, the 2026 NEC restructuring, a code-wide evolution. To really wrap our heads around the specific rules, we've got to zoom out and look at the macro layout first. The code-making panels actually shifted entire neighborhoods of rules. Why? Well, they're laying the groundwork for a massive reorganization scheduled for 2029. The code is basically pulling these previously scattered systems into a much more cohesive, color-coded structure. By centralizing definitions and wiring methods, it's becoming so much easier to navigate, which is absolutely crucial as our infrastructure takes on more complex, high-voltage systems.
Now, the most immediate structural shift you need to know for your day-to-day work, it's all about load calculations. Historically, branch circuit, feeder, and service load calcs lived right in Chapter 2 under Article 220. But in the 2026 edition, those calculations packed up their bags and moved straight into Chapter 1 to become the brand new Article 120. This is a real game changer because it fundamentally clears up Chapter 2 to focus entirely on its core mission, wiring and protection.
Moving right along to Part 2, Chapter 2, the new look. So, the biggest visual change to Chapter 2 is this massive addition right at the tail end. To better organize systems operating over 1,000 volts AC and 1,500 volts DC, they injected 5 brand new articles right after Article 250. Articles 265 through 270 perfectly mirror the standard low-voltage structures we're used to, but they're specifically built for these higher voltages. Plus, they created Article 245 solely to consolidate overcurrent protection rules for these high-voltage thresholds. It's all about creating centralized, easy-to-find safety standards.
All right, Part 3, Article 210, load calculation shifts.
Zooming in from that macro view, let's talk about Article 210, which is governed by Code Making Panel 2 and tackles branch circuits. Here is the big number you need to know. Thanks to modern, energy-efficient LED lighting, the standard dwelling unit load calculation has been slashed. We used to calculate general lighting and receptacles at 3 volt amperes, or VA, per square foot, right? Well, in 2026, that number drops down to just 2 VA per square foot for your overall service calculation. But wait, here's where it gets a little tricky. While that total home service footprint can be downsized to 2 VA, Section 120.13 introduces a really vital safeguard. It mandates that individual branch circuit density still has to be calculated at the legacy 3 VA per square foot. You might be wondering why I do that. Well, it prevents installers from dangerously underwiring a home by minimizing the physical number of circuits. You get a smaller overall service footprint, sure, but you still need a robust number of localized circuits so you don't overload the system.
On to Part 4. GFCI and AFCI evolutions, personal safety upgrades.
To keep pace with all the high-tech, variable speed appliances sitting in our homes today, personal safety mechanisms are evolving fast. We're actually seeing the introduction of a completely new designation, the Class A HF GFCI. The code-making panels engineered this solution directly alongside UL testing standards to combat a very modern and honestly incredibly frustrating problem that electricians deal with constantly in the field.
So let's look at the why behind this. You know how traditional Class A GFCIs were constantly nuisance tripping? They were actually mistaking the high-frequency leakage currents naturally generated by modern appliances. Think washing machines with variable speed motors or advanced HVAC inverters for hazardous ground faults. The new AHF-rated GFCI solves this. It maintains that vital 4 to 6 milliamp life safety shock protection, but it features advanced filtering to just ignore that safe high-frequency operational noise. It is literally a sanity-saving update.
Now, on the fire prevention side, the panel dug heavily into incident data regarding arc fault circuit interrupters. And this quote highlights exactly why expanding AFCI is absolutely critical. These aren't just arbitrary rules, guys. The metrics prove that localized structural fires frequently start from mechanical damage, like kids pulling on exposed appliance cords or cords getting crushed behind a heavy couch. AFCIs actively scan the electrical waveform for the erratic signatures of those arcs, shutting down the circuit before a fire even has a chance to ignite. And there are a few other massive safety evolutions you definitely need to know. First off, that 1000 amp threshold for arc flash hazard labels? Gone. Now all non-dwelling service and feeder equipment requires labeling. Second, mark your calendars, because by September 1st, 2026, mandatory HVAC GFCI protection kicks in, which requires Class A or the specialized Class C devices. And finally, if you're installing an EV charger, those standard 30 to 60 amp receptacles just won't cut it anymore. They absolutely must be specifically listed for EVSE use to safely handle those continuous high heat loads.
Okay, bringing it home with Part 5, Review Checkpoints for Installers.
We have covered a lot of ground today, so let's lock in this knowledge right now. Where do I find residential load calculations now, and what are the square footage values for branch circuits versus service sizing? If you're taking a certification exam anytime soon, this is the exact type of question that will test if you've really been paying attention to the 2026 restructuring.
All right, burn these details into your memory. You no longer go to Chapter 2 for the math. You navigate straight to Article 120 in Chapter 1. When you're doing the math, use 2 VA per square foot for your overall home service footprint. But, and this is the big but, to ensure the home is wired safely without overloading, you must keep your localized branch circuit density robust at 3 VA per square foot.
Considering how much vital safety and structural ground we just covered in this explainer today, from new high-voltage articles all the way down to high-frequency GFCI filtering, it leaves you wondering, with 2026 just laying the groundwork, just how sweeping will the promised 2029 code-wide reorganization truly be? Is it going to completely redefine the daily workflow of the modern electrician? Well, I guess we'll find out. Thanks for joining me on the explainer today, and keep learning out there.